listening to the Coast Business Radio podcast.
Angie Bell has been a member of the House of Reps since the 2019 federal election, representing the Division of Moncrieff on the Gold Coast. Angie Bell was a marketing professional, author, small businesswoman and a proud Gold Coaster. Coming from 3 generations of factory workers, knows what hard work is all about. Throughout her career, she worked with many small businesses to help them grow and create jobs. Angie Bell is passionate about the Gold Coast and its future. And speaking of Angie Bell, Angie, nice to chat.
Great to chat with you too, Mike, and that's a wonderful introduction. Thank you very much.
I've rehearsed it.
Well, you've certainly got your great podcast voice on, so that's terrific.
Oh, hello, world. Now, your local priorities. What do you want to achieve in your term?
Well, at the moment, I'm working in 3 key areas because they are the most important areas and continue to be in Moncrieff, but working to make sure that our most vulnerable are taken care of, firstly, because at the moment, that's top of mind. And I would say that's the area that I've been working closely in for the last couple of weeks, since the first week of this crisis, to make sure that they're okay. And then secondly, of course, small business is very, very important to Moncrieff, with 32,111 businesses at last count in Moncrieff. So small business is extremely important to the Central Gold Coast, as is tourism, and of course the education sector as well. So I've sort of been working in the last period, specifically in those 3 key areas, but more broadly over the period, I think delivering infrastructure for our city is important, and we've seen that with the next stage of light rail going ahead. We've seen we've got some earth movers in there, and that extra $170 million that I announced with the Deputy Prime Minister back in November has now started to move soil. So that's a great thing for the coast, and connectivity is important for the Gold Coast to make sure that we can move people around our fantastic city, and it becomes even more livable than it is now.
You've launched a couple of initiatives to assist local small business, such as the Business Help Finder and Love Your Local campaigns. Tell us about these.
Okay, so as I said, I was focusing on helping small business as much as possible, and as you said in my introduction, that is my background as a small business development manager, where I worked actually across every state and territory in Australia for many years to help small business get ahead and improve their margins and understand their cash flow and their turnover and their break-even point and all of those important things for small business. So I was here in my office looking at all of the things that the government's delivering for SMEs and sole traders and not-for-profits with JobKeeper and the other initiatives that we're taking, and it just seemed like an awful lot of information to wade through. And so I thought that we would develop a tool for small business, SMEs, sole traders and not-for-profits to be able to go to one place, ask a simple question, and then be directed to a trusted source, which is a number of government websites. So on my website, which is angiebell.com.au, there is a business help finder, so you can click through to whether you're a sole trader, SME or not-for-profit, and find the answers to your simple questions. And I can continue to build that so that the more questions that come up, the more answers we can provide. But it's just a simple way for small business to be able to go to one trusted source and find the answers to simple questions. And I think that's really important at this time, because it is a lot to wade through. And when you've got all of the issues that are upon small business, sole traders and not-for-profits just at the moment, anything I can do to make the process more simple, I think is useful.
Interesting with the virus. I mean, first of all, Love Your Local campaign, great idea, but really at the moment you can't go anywhere anyway. So if you don't love your local, you'll probably end up starving because that's your neighbourhood's so important. But once we get out of this shut down and we start to move forward, as the Prime Minister said, once we cross the bridge, and that always sounds ominous because what's on the other side of the bridge, but once we get through all that, where do you see the Gold Coast being? Because tourism, education, the two probably the biggest industries on the Gold Coast, Queensland being a small business state, We're
right.
in for a pretty torrid time, so love your local really has impact then, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and look, as I have been in close contact with Destination Gold Coast throughout this period, and generally more broadly as the member for Moncrieff, in regular contact with Destination Gold Coast, and understanding what they're doing, and working together with them and the city to make sure that we do, as you say, have a road to recovery. But I think the Gold Coast can lead in this space if we work together, and I think the first area that will come back to the coast will be obviously the drive market, so the southeast Queensland drive market, people wanting to come to the coast from Brisbane and even the Sunshine Coast and from west to the coast because they wouldn't have seen the beach for a while, and we know how beautiful we are as a destination here on the Gold Coast. So that will be the first market to come back to the Gold Coast. And then, of course, we'll have the rest of the country once state restrictions are lifted. And so I think we need to make sure that we're competitive fighting for that slice of the market to make sure that we get the numbers that we need to once restrictions are lifted. And, you know, we're going to chug along here now for 3 weeks with the restrictions in place that we have and then have another look and reassess. The National Cabinet will have a look at that and decide what they're going to do and how quickly or slowly we're going to lift restrictions. And I think it's about businesses making sure that they're ready to quickly resume, to make sure that they have used this time to sort of improve their offer, if you like. And I think innovation at this time is really, really important. And for small businesses also to have a look at what they've been doing, have a look at where their revenue streams have come from and see if they can diversify in that space. Have a look at diversifying also their supply chains, which is really important. As we've seen across the country, our vulnerabilities to having a supply chain that is too narrow. So diversifying so that some of your supplies, you know, come from local businesses or interstate businesses, or certainly national within the country borders, you know, supply chains that come from around the country, but also then really externally and from different countries. So I think they are really important issues right now, and we're seeing some stores unfortunately close down because their supply chains are too narrow and they only have one revenue stream. So really important that business takes the opportunity now to regroup, innovate, and come out the other side ready to rock and roll, ready for growth with a new, improved product. And I think that's really important.
Are you finding there are issues with companies taking up JobKeeper, just not signing up or looking for ways to help the bottom line at the expense of maybe one of their employees?
Well, look, surprisingly, here in Moncrieff, I would have thought we would have more small businesses in that position where they're having difficulty. But looking at our inbox over the last couple of, email inbox over the last couple of weeks, there's been surprisingly few who have highlighted problems with JobKeeper. I think the problem has been the period between when it was announced and when it's going to be implemented, which is first week of May. And we've seen the Treasury yesterday highlight the phone call that was made to the top four banks, the big four, to make sure that they get a hotline going so that small business can have bridging finance between now and then. And I was talking to Lee, actually, at the Mermaid Beach Surf Club yesterday when I popped in to get my espresso that I absolutely needed on the way through. Popped in there, got a takeaway coffee on the way through to the office. And he was talking about how he just paid their staff and they were now waiting for the JobKeeper to kick in so that they could, be repaid that money. So I guess the message is to just try to get through this time however you can, and then JobKeeper will be backdated to help you through. But it certainly saved a lot of businesses, and every business leader that I speak to or small business that I speak to is very grateful that the government put that in place.
It's a fabulous idea, and one that really stands out, not just in Australia but globally. I've got to say though, for example, to apply for the JobKeeper, you got to keep paying your workers and then you get the subsidy. But the problem was the small business didn't have the money. So is that an issue? The liquidity of a business to have the ready available cash to get through until the subsidy comes back?
Well, yes, and that's what we've been discussing, is that it's that time between how long it's taken for, and understandably there are the ATO has having to put there's a lot of pressure on the ATO to be able to deliver, and I think they're doing a fantastic job with that, as our social services with actually delivering to those who need it. But there are a number of things that the government's put in place. Early access to super is one of them. 456,000 actually have been approved, which totals $3.8 billion.
Wow. Of people
who have applied to take out $10,000 twice before July. So that will help some people. There's an SME guarantee scheme as well, so where the government will guarantee 50% to eligible lenders for unsecured loans, and that's up to a maximum of $250,000 for up to 3 years. So there are very many ways that the government is helping small business to get through this hump, if you like, and that's why I guess the Business Help Finder on my website has got all the links to these relevant questions. So one of the questions is, is there finance available? What help is available? So if you pop onto that website and have a look at angiebell.com.au, it'll actually take you to the answers to help you find your way through the maze if you're a small business operator, a sole trader or a not-for-profit. And some of the, of course, answers aren't all the same. So there are specific websites that the links will take you to that should answer your questions, should you have them. The
future of tourism, Virgin, with their demise, and fingers crossed that somebody will come in, really worries me.
Well, as we know, Virgin Australia is a very important airline to the Gold Coast, and that's why the Australian government's put in $1.28 billion to support aviation industry. But we haven't, the government hasn't played favourites, and Virgin being a 90% owned, overseas-owned operation, it's not something that Australian taxpayers should bail out. But the federal government is determined to do everything possible to keep the two airlines. We need competition in the air, as we know, and having two airlines coming into the coast is very important for our economy and for our Gold Coast airport. And so, the Morrison government is engaging constructively with Virgin Australia's administrator, through Nicholas Moore, to ensure that we maintain those two commercially viable airlines. Now, we don't know what Virgin's going to look like on the other side of this, but we do know that currently there are no redundancies. We've heard the CEO talk about that, and the airline is still flying. So we'll see how it's resurrected and what it looks like. It may not look the same, which is sad for many people who like to use Virgin, but who knows what it will look like on the other side. Let's see what the market comes up with. They
were saying cheap airfares are now a thing of the past, and, for example, if they don't use or rip out the middle seat, make sure that you have the social distancing on planes, that the airfares for an airline to make a small profit, they're going to need to at least increase the airfare by 50%. If that happens, that makes tourism on the Gold Coast a little bit harder, doesn't it?
Well, I don't think I'd like to speculate on what the private airlines, what the airlines are doing with their pricing structure. We haven't seen a change at this point, so I wouldn't like to speculate on future, flight prices, ticket prices for airlines around the country. I would imagine that if it wouldn't be just to the coast, it would be to everywhere around the country if prices were to change. But look, on the other side of this crisis, we will see very many changes in very many areas of our lives, and very many changes in business, changes in tourism, changes in small business, all kinds of changes across our society, and that is just a fact. And we'll have to work very hard to get back to, the semblance of normality that we all want to live towards. So I don't think anything will look the same. And I think it is a great opportunity, as I said before, for a business, even for airlines, to innovate, change, pivot, and move forward into the new world that we will have post-COVID-19. So I think if we keep being positive, as positive as we can be, and are proactive, we can come out the other end bigger and better.
And that's why your hashtag Love Your Local, it's fantastic because we may not have the overseas visitors for many, many months. Interstate will be a little bit longer, maybe 6 months away or 5 months away, whatever each state decides on. But locals are here, and there's nothing better than after a really torrid week, go and stay at a property, enjoy what the visitors enjoy coming to the Gold Coast. Go out for a nice meal, have a beer on the balcony, overlook the water, best beaches in the world. So love your local is very important, isn't it?
Oh, look, it absolutely is. And, the domestic tourism part of what the Gold Coast has enjoyed for so many years and the growth that we were seeing will plug the international hole to a degree. And when I was speaking with the Minister for Trade and Tourism, Simon Birmingham, when I had him on the coast here about a month ago for a roundtable with tourism leaders, we were talking about this, and the number that he came up with was 30% of that hole will be plugged with domestic tourism. So it's around the country, not just on the Gold Coast, but as an average number. So to a degree, we will find people from the domestic market who won't travel overseas because they won't be able to, and they will be loving their local. And what more to love locally than Gold Coast business, all the way from in the electorate of Moncrieff, all the way from North Burleigh Surf Club down to the Southport Yacht Club to Spit, and out through Mollendina, out to Nerang and the gateway to the hinterland, and then back through those wonderful businesses in Miami. It's a fantastic place to live. It's the best. I think it's the best electorate in Australia, and I have regular arguments in Canberra with other MPs who think they've got a better electorate. But I think this is the best place to be, and there's no reason why we can't bounce back stronger than we were before. We just have to weather the storm and work together. And that's what I plan to do with city leaders. That's what I am doing with city leaders, to make sure that we plot the pathway out and that we're ahead of the curve, for want of a better term. So I think we've got a very promising future as we did before. We've got so much going for us here on the coast, with arts and culture, with the Health and Knowledge Precinct out at Griffith University, with our researchers out there. This is the best place in the world, and it's the safest place in the world to live. And so I encourage everybody to support our local business, because I want my local coffee shop, a number of them that I frequent, to be there at the end of this, so that we can go back to our normal lives, but an improved version of.
It's interesting, when the gyms closed, I was like, oh no, I have to look after the temple, you see. And the longer I didn't go to the gym, the temple was resembling the Temple of Doom. So what I thought, my wife and I, we said, okay, we're going to start walking. All these walks we've done, and we went for a walk the other day, drove down, it was essential driving because I needed to go to the beach, so we drove down to just near Miami, and we walked along the beach and right up through Burleigh Hill. We've never been to Burleigh Hill, so what we're doing is we're seeing this beautiful part of the world, even more of it, and it's our backyard, so we're very lucky, aren't we? We
are very, very lucky, and I too have tried to improve my health during this period, and I'm doing a bit of harder exercise, and it's nice to be able to have a little bit more time rather than going backwards and forwards from Canberra regularly, although we will resume in May. But it's been nice to have a few mornings to be able to work on physical health and strength, and it's a good time to focus on trying to improve ourselves and be better at the other end, just like business needs to. I think individually it's a very difficult time for very many individuals who are self-isolated, for the elderly, for grandparents who are unable to see their grandchildren. That's very, very difficult. I have a couple of young grandsons who haven't been able to see except on FaceTime over the last few months. So it's very difficult for families who are not able to connect face to face. But if we work together, we do the right thing, we keep those in our community who are vulnerable safe, then we will come out the other side, and the Gold Coast will once again be the best place in the world. Absolutely. I've seen many countries around the world, and this really is, particularly at this time, and I think the job that the Prime Minister's done is, and his team is outstanding, to have the numbers that we have, and to, it's a very fine balancing act when it comes to restrictions, because the longer the restrictions are in place, the more the economy will hurt. So it's a fine balancing act between health and the economy, and getting that right. And I think he's doing a fantastic job right now.
And I think finally the balancing is always enhanced with a cold beer on a Friday night.
Well, I'm sure the Prime Minister will enjoy a cold beer on the occasional Friday night, but he certainly deserves it with everything he's been doing in the last, 4 or 5 months where he's been in this mode, with the floods and then the bushfires and now coronavirus. So he certainly wouldn't have a lot of time to himself, but I think he deserves a cold beer on a Friday night.
Oh no, forget the Prime Minister. We all deserve a beer, maybe at Lost Palms Brewery or a whiskey at Grandad Jack's. The classy places. And in fact, you could perhaps perform there one night because you're an ex-muso.
Oh, yes, I am. Someone told you that, did they?
Yeah, well, it's everywhere. But I've always wondered, what did you do as a muso?
I was a saxophone player,
oh,
professional
wow.
saxophone player for about 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I had my first paid gig when I was 14, so
Isn't
I
that
started
fantastic?
in high school.
Yeah, love saxophone. Fantastic chatting. We'll do this more often. Angie Bell, nice talking.
You too, Mike. I've really enjoyed it.